everyone, and welcome to our Fireworks Paint and Pour with CMPL. I want to give everybody a minute or two to get all the materials that they need. We'll go over all the materials we'll be using today, but we're using some pretty basic stuff today. It's not going to be too complicated. We want to make sure we have something to mix everything on. I'm going to use some pretty basic colors today. I happen to have yellow, red, and blue, but they are actually blacklight reactive paint. But if you don't technically have blacklight reactive paint, that's okay. This is what I'm using today. I've also got white paint. But basically what we're going to do is go ahead and work with some very bright colors. And we want to make sure that we have a very dark background to do that on. So I'm starting with a black canvas, but if you don't have a black canvas, you can go right ahead and just paint your background black and let it dry. Pretty much we want that nice dark night color, and we'll be doing those bright fireworks on top of that. So again, you can use whatever paint colors are preferable to you. We want to make sure we have some really good basic brushes. Really anything that's pretty small is going to be the best bet. I don't need anything that's a very large or wide brush today. Make sure we have some water, and again, something to mix all your colors on. So we'll go ahead and get started. Again, if you want to do some mixing, you can go ahead and do that. I just have a really small plate today because I don't plan to do a whole lot of mixing probably, but we'll see. So I have my very small, just rounded brush, very basic. And that's what I'm going to use to start with my outlines here. We're going to start by adding some basic lines to our canvas here, basically. So I'm going to use the basic word a lot. Sorry about that, guys. But we want to kind of get a feel for our canvas width and or height, depending on which way you're doing this. I'm going to go about a third of the way up the canvas here. And this is where I'm going to mark all the way across. And I'm actually going to use the back of my paintbrush to do that. I'm just going to kind of drag this back. There's nothing on it. I'm just going to drag it across my canvas, and it's just going to leave a little bit of a mark on my canvas. And I like to do that because I like to be able to paint right over it. So I don't know if it shows up very well on the video here, but that's pretty much how I am going to mark on my canvas where my upper fireworks area will be up here. And then below that is the kind of reflective part that we'll be doing at the very end. So again, I'm going to start, actually I'm going to get my stuff out of the way here. All right, so I'm going to start with some white paint, and I want just a teensy little bit of white paint. So I'm actually going to get it on my brush and then just sort of tap off as much as possible onto my paper plate over here. And I just want my bristles on my brush to have the tiniest bit of white on there. I don't really want to draw a whole thick outline or anything like that. We're just getting some sort of background of our fireworks here. So again, don't want a whole lot of heavy paint on here, just light paint. And I'm going to start by figuring out where I want my background fireworks to be. They can be any size or shape you want. I'm going to start by doing just a little dab in the middle here. That'll be our center of our firework. And I actually have too much paint on my brush here, so I'm going to wipe some of that off. And I'm going to take that and from the center, just kind of get all exciting and do some really big swoops. You don't need to add a bunch of paint. Like I said, you want it to be almost a chalky consistency. And if you feel like you need a little bit more, that's okay. We are going to be painting over this with our brighter colors. So don't worry if it looks like it's not really like a fireworks. They're going to be popping out at us in just a minute. So I'm going to do my second one here. I'm going to do one of those kind of sparkly ones. So I'm just going to do some little dots all over. And this kind of reminds me of a dandelion a little bit. And I'm just going to do tiny little dots. And then let's see, I'll do another center of a firework over here. I'm going to go ahead and do my swoops again, get that going. This one, I really like the consistency of this. It's very, very light, kind of smoky. That's what we're going for. Let's see here. Start doing one right down here. This is going to be a big guy because he's right in the middle. He's maybe right in the center of the painting up in the foreground. And I am layering over my other fireworks, and that is okay. Think about going to a fireworks show and you've got stuff all over the place. So now I have my line here. And again, this is just the sky versus the water. We're actually going to do a reflective base down here. So I don't want to actually paint below that right now. I want to stay above that. But I am going to use that as kind of my base. So I've got those little sparkly guys that are usually on the ground. We're going to have those kind of coming up from the ground here and give that like a foreground effect. Make sure you don't get your sleeve in your paint there. And I'm just going to do a few of those. They almost look like little bushes or like grass, and you can make them as big or as little as you want. You can do as many as you want. I'm just going to do not too many. And then I'm going to kind of fill out the background a little bit more. Maybe another sparkly guy up here. My little dandelion guy. This whole painting reminds me of flowers and grass and stuff like that. Very nature-y, but yet it will not look anything like nature when we're done. Let's see. Off on the side here, maybe another little guy, little swoops going on. All right, I feel pretty good about this. And as I go, I might add a few more things. We'll see how I feel. But these are so again, my background of my fireworks. We can get that out of the way. We are going to move on. And I'm actually, let's see here. I'm actually going to go ahead and use another brush. I do have some white on my brush in my left hand here, but I'm going to use this other little brush. And this is just like I think this came with like a watercolor set. It's just a really cheapy. I kind of feel like if you have just these little, they're almost the same size, just these really basic little round brushes that you can find just about anywhere. These are what work really well. I am actually going to go ahead and start with some of this red, and I am just going to use the one that I use for white because I want to use that to start blending at first. So I'm going to go ahead and just same technique, not a whole lot of red, a little bit more red than I had white. And I'm going to paint right over what I just did pretty much. And I'm going to do a little bit of red in the middle there. And as I go, you'll see how it gets a little bit more red versus white. There we go, get some swoops going. And just kind of trace over what you just did with the white. And you can go over it a few times, add some highlights, some lowlights as you go. Basically, the more paint you use, and if you want to mix colors, you can go ahead and do that too. The more paint you use, the darker it will seem and the less, I think the less like lit up it seems, but I'm going to go ahead and just mix a little blue in here, do some contrast. And I'm not really mixing the blue with the red. I'm just sort of not wiping off my brush. I'm just going to go right ahead and go over it. And it will kind of just blend naturally as you go. I'm just going to keep dabbing between the two colors, maybe a little bit more red over here. And again, I'm not wiping my brush off in between. I'm just sort of going with the colors that I feel like are speaking to me at this point. I don't know what it's speaking to me like a fireworks colors would. So a little too much on there. So I'm going to actually go ahead. And again, I just kind of brushed off my brush on the plate. I didn't really wipe it off or clean it. I'm going to add a little bit more white. And these are going to be my highlights. I'm going to brighten up that center a little bit, and maybe just strategically, which I like to say is wherever you want, strategically add a few little highlights with the white again. And I'm not going to paint quite over it. I'm going to kind of just, a little too much there. That's okay. And these are kind of the reflection that we're going for here, those bright lights. And that's just here and there, not the whole thing, just a couple swoops here and there. And there we go. Maybe a little more up there. You don't want to cover all the red. I covered up quite a bit of red there, but that's okay. So I am going to go back with a little bit more blue here again, and right over here in this big guy in the middle here. It's kind of a balance between adding more paint and taking off paint and then adding more paint and just kind of feel it out as you go. I like to use the plate to take the paint off of my brush. And also you want to make sure that was a bad move right there. Make sure that you're painting in the same direction as you did originally. So you want to start from the inside and go outward. So that one little motion I made, don't go in from the outside. You want to go out from the inside kind of a thing. There we go. Do some big swoops over here. And I am painting kind of over painting it. So there are white streaks in the background, but I'm kind of painting some blue over the black where there isn't white. And that's okay too. It just won't be quite as highlighted if you do that. Let's see. Clean off my brush a little bit there and add some yellow. My yellow is actually pretty thin, so I'm going really kind of heavy on the yellow as opposed to with my red and my blue because my yellow is just really thin. So if it looks like I'm putting more yellow on my brush, you are correct. With that, I want that to show up a little bit better. And again, I still haven't really cleaned my brush from that first one. I'm just kind of adding on as I go. If you don't want your colors to mix at all, that's fine too. A couple highlights. Actually, hang on here. I'm gonna go. So I've got the background or the tail of this little brush. I'm gonna see if this works and try and use. All right. Like I said, so my yellow is pretty thin, and this is kind of it's not so much painting it on like a brush. It's sort of just dragging the color so it keeps it pretty thin and saturated in that area. And I'm just adding some highlights with the yellow. So kind of instead of the white, I'm gonna go right there in the center. Get some highlights in there. And again, just be strategic with it wherever you want. I like to use my paintbrushes in unique ways. So you see how it kind of just drags that little dot of paint through the line there, and it's not so much brushing it out, it keeps it a pretty thin line. So I'm sort of highlighting stuff up here. I drag that back a little bit. Take some more down here. All right. Okay, so I'm going to take my yellow and do some dots over here for my little sparkly guy. I do want these to be a little bit bigger, a little bit more pronounced than the other one. I'm going to use a regular brush again. Let's see. I feel like I want this, I don't know, I feel like I want this to be brighter. I think I'm just having a hard time with my yellow. You might have a better yellow than I do. Make sure you have a nice thicker yellow and not too thin. It's kind of hard to paint with this yellow on a black background, but again, if you want to just go back over it multiple times, you can add more white to kind of highlight it. I do find that if I'm painting yellow over the white, once the white has dried, that does help a little bit. But I'm also I'm just adding some more white in amongst the yellow dots here, or to highlight them. I don't want it to all be white. I want it to look kind of sparkly and explodey like my other guys there, but just these are like the crackly ones. Let's see, add a little more in the center here, my nice bright center. There we go. Very tempted to put more highlights on here now that I've got the white. We'll do a couple little swoops here and there. There we go. All right. I'm going to take my red and, excuse me, I'm just going to put a whole bunch of that on my paper plate, just kind of as a mixing. See here. There we go. Want to mix my colors here and see what kind of color I get. So I've got my red on there. I'm grabbing some blue and see if I can get a good purple going on here. And again, I'm using these like neon, black light reflective or reactive. So the colors are a little bit different than like a normal acrylic paint. But I got a pretty good purple going on there. I like that. So we're going to let that go. And I am going to take my paintbrush again, as opposed to my mixing brush, because that's got way too much paint. I'm going to take my regular painting brush, just dab a little bit on there, and we're going to start on this guy here and do some highlights in the center, do my nice swoops. I might kind of go between the purple and the blue and just sort of mix that amongst each other. Maybe even just the purple and the red, purple and the blue, red and the blue. We're just going to see how it goes. I do like this purple though. Some more blue in there. This is one of the things I do really like about this painting is you kind of just do whatever colors you want. You kind of go as you feel and just sort of add things, layering. You know, you can go back to some other ones and add more color as you go. Oh, I got to stop doing that. I got to stop going from the outside in. Nope, it doesn't look as good. I'm going to make this guy have a lot of little arms coming out here. And then also pay attention to as you go, I am painting over that big guy in the middle there. So that is kind of bringing it to the background versus this one. So you can go back after and add more. Whatever you've painted last is going to look more like the foreground, essentially. This one's very, very 4th of July with the colors. I'm gonna brighten up the middle here a little bit more. There we go. Very patriotic. All right, let's see. I haven't used my yellow in a little while. What can we do here? Do some yellow and some blue. And I've made the mistake of mixing with my paintbrush, but that's okay. I'll just make sure to wipe it off really well. Let's see if I can get a nice green going on. All that extra paint off of there. All right, let's do this guy over here in the corner. Do some swoops out here. That actually isn't showing up very green. Let's add some more blue. I think it looks a little more green on my canvas than it probably does on the camera, but that's okay. Let's see. There we go. Get back to my mixing brush here, but I'm going to do the same technique I did with the yellow. And I'm going to try and drag some blue through here. So this is, I guess, kind of a highlight, but I'm just doing a darker color. Let's see. Just kind of drawing some lines in there to differentiate between the different swoops of color I got going on. I'll add some sparkle up here. Why not? It's really hard to paint sparkles. At least for me, I don't know. If I had like glitter, maybe it would not be as hard, but just using like a flat color. So when I think sparkles, I just think these tiny little dots. And you'll see like the ones that I'm doing right now, I'm using that back of that paintbrush or the handle of the paintbrush. And that is a very, very fine handle. It's plastic. It's obviously it's hard, so it's not going to spread apart as I touch the canvas versus like I did earlier with the sparkly yellow guy. Since I was using my brush, the bristles do part as you use that. So you get a less fine point. So go ahead and go back with my yellow a little bit more. Some of that off of there. And we're going to do this little guy over here on the side. him a nice bright center. Some swoops out. This guy really looks like a flower now with that yellow. Maybe he's one of the real big circular ones that are real dense. I just want to get some of the yellow to be a little bit more pronounced, a little darker. There we go. You can still see the white that I painted originally, that's fine, but you want the yellow to look very much like it's exploding. So let's see here. So I've got my two little guys. I've got the big guy in the front. And again, as I paint over, I'm really determined to get this yellow to stand out, you guys. So as I paint over, those will come more into the foreground again. So I might go back at the end, we'll see, and add more to that big one in the middle and make it more pronounced in the foreground as opposed to these guys. All right, let's see here. Maybe if I get some more white in the center to lighten it up. Or maybe I'll add some color. There we go, get some red in there and do some low lights maybe, little accents. And I'm a little bit lighter handed with the red going over the yellow because I don't want to cover up all the yellow and I don't want to mix it too much with the yellow so that I have the separation of the color there. So I'm going to do a couple of these. And then let's see here, get some that extra paint off. I am going to add some more white to the middle, I think, brighten it up a little. The middle is where the fireworks are exploding. So you want that to be nice and bright and pronounced. I need some clean off my brush. I got too many colors going on. There we go. All right. Do some highlights. And some of these are going to look kind of smoky. Some of them are going to be a little bit more pronounced. That's okay. All right, so I got these two. I've got the last one up in the top corner. I think I'm going to do yellow for this guy. See if I can get it to work. So again, with my yellow, I'm loading up my brush a lot more than I am with the other colors because it is just not taken to my canvas very well. So I'm going to try and get it to stand out. Here we go. This is looking good. So I've got my little sparkles. I think I'm going to do that. Might do some of those over here too. See how I feel once I get him done. There we go. Oh, let that stand out a little bit more. And I am keeping it kind of down. I wanted to kind of touch that line that I made for my, there's my sparkles. I did my sparkles in a different color. We'll see how that looks. Kind of bring those in. But I do want to keep these little ground fireworks on that line because that is my shoreline. And so we want those to all be kind of on the same, and I guess your shoreline can be all curved if you wanted to or whatever. That's totally fine. I did mine straight across. But we want those to touch the shoreline because that is where the fireworks stop and the water begins. So let's see. I've got all that purple on my brush here. Get some more yellow on my canvas, or my canvas, sorry, on my paper plate. Very high-tech color mixing system here. I'm gonna try and make a little bit of an orange, but oh, this yellow is just, if I remembered the brand, maybe it's good that I don't remember the brand, but if I remembered the brand, I might tell you not to use it because this yellow is just not my favorite. It is taking so much paint to get it to do what I want. Get a little bit of an orange going on here. All right. Get some of that on my paintbrush. Don't want too much though. And we're gonna try to make this guy orange. Oh boy, and on the camera, it looks pretty identical, but I assure you it's a slightly different color than the yellow one I just did. Try and get that more pronounced color. There we go. Maybe do some plain yellow highlights on there. And I don't want to forget about my guy up in the corner there, my little sparkly guy. But let's give this one some sparkles. Some yellow sparkles on this. And then now it's just the red one that doesn't have sparkles. Let's see, I might go back and add sparkles to that. But maybe not, maybe he'll be an outlier. We'll see. All right. So last but not least, we've got this little guy up in the corner. So we're gonna go back in there. And again, I'm using just the regular bristle side of my paintbrush because I do want these to be a little bit bigger of a circle than those little sparkles that I just did. So I'm just going over, at first I'm trying to cover all the parts where I painted the white. So I'm gonna try and cover those with blue. But then once I've got those pretty well covered, I'm just gonna go through and sort of fill it out. So maybe fill some spaces in here. And you will see a little bit of a difference between the places where you put just the blue paint on the black canvas and where you put the blue paint on the white. So we're gonna get some more white on my brush here and go through and do some highlights like that other guy over there. And with this one, since I am adding the highlights, I'm just picking and choosing. Don't want to cover every little blue dot I just made. Maybe a couple over here. Just to bring some sparkle. There we go. One more. All right. I am going to actually do multicolor here, and I'm going back in with some red. Again, we're being patriotic. I'm gonna put that amongst all the blue and the white that I just did. I don't want to cover up all the blue, don't want to cover up all the white, just kind of mix it all in where there's empty space. All right. So let's see. I'm feeling pretty good about my fireworks over here. I feel like we might be all right. Okay, so it doesn't look like a whole lot because we still have this line here because we need to draw a shoreline. So this right here, this bottom, the top half is the fireworks and the bottom half is going to be our water reflection. So we're going to take everything we just painted and kind of pull it down into the water. You aren't going to totally make a reflection. It's just going to mimic across there. And this part is even easier, but we want to make sure the only rule here is if I have yellow and blue over here, I want to take the yellow and blue from up there and put it down in the water there. So if I don't have yellow over here, I don't want to put yellow in the water over there. So let's see. So we're going to take all these and kind of think about the way that water looks when it's all ripply. And you're just going to kind of take that and you're going to get real loosey-goosey and just kind of draw a few lines and give the suggestion of a reflection. And you're going to bring that across and kind of go back and forth. And you're just going to kind of do that for all the different colors. So I've got my blue over here. I'm going to do the same thing I just did. And you can be a little heavier handed with these than you were with the fireworks. You don't have to be as precise. That is okay, because again, water is very ripply. I got a little bit of yellow in the corner over here. Let's go some yellow. And it's amazing how very quickly it suddenly starts to look like water. It's still very abstract, but you get going and then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, I see the water. We're gonna take this little bit of yellow. I've got a little yellow in my big guy in the middle, but then I've mostly got blue. So we're gonna get some blue on my brush here. And pull that down as well. kind of bring that across. And let's see, a little bit of red. I've got a little bit of blue on my brush still, but that's okay because I've got blue kind of all over the place. So we're just going to start to blend it all kind of together as we go. And let's see, I've got my blue and my red and my purpley colors going on there. So we'll add a few more blue sort of splotches and lines throughout. And I've got my blue guy up in the corner too, and my red guy in the other corner. So we'll get those colors going as well. And we'll bring that down right about there. Get some more blue. My last little bits of that kind of purpley color going with my blue and my red. All right, so got all my colors kind of added to my water line there. I'm gonna take some white. And again, I don't want too much on the bristles. I just want touches of white, and I'm going to go through and just sort of add some highlights, very similar to what we were doing, but almost the opposite of our fireworks. So previously with the fireworks, we did the white background and then color on top. This one, we're going to do all the color, and then I'm going through and just a little dab. There we go. Just kind of think of like the way the waves work and light reflects off the water. I'm just going to do a few little strokes of white across here and just sort of bring out the different motion of the water that you might see. All right, so I've got my colors pretty well represented. I've got a nice bright big brush. It is completely clean, nothing on it. And I'm just going over it with a dry brush, no paint, no nothing. And I am going to just sort of very gently, almost like you're sweeping off dust. Just go back and let all of that kind of blend together. You just want to soften these lines so that it's not too harsh. And that gives kind of the soft ripply effect. If you do want to go back and add a couple more highlights after that, you can definitely do that. And a little bit of a white highlight here. I'm being very, very gentle. I don't want to go too heavy with these. And you can kind of keep doing that over and over, however many times you want. That's fine with me. It's really up to you. I just want to give a little bit of highlight here and there again. There we go. And maybe one right here. Just a little bit. There. All right, so I'm going to brush these out a little bit more. Again, not too heavy, just very lightly. A little bit more white in the center of this guy. And as your paint dries, if you want to go back and add more layering to it, absolutely do that. Depending on what paint you're using, it may dry differently than mine is here. I'm just going to add some fun little highlights. Why not? Make this guy really bright. This one needs a little bit more too. And it looks like I'm painting really, really harshly, but I have very, very, very little paint on my bristles at this point. So I'm just kind of adding a little bit of a smoky effect. All right, so I've got all my colors on here. I feel like I've got a good distinct line between my fireworks up at the top and my water down at the bottom. And if at this point you are finished, you're welcome to just leave it as is. But if you want to go back and just add like some highlights with you know, more layers of paint, or if you have some like puff paint, you could do like some lines all over the place, add a little bit texture to it, define some of these streaks a little bit more, maybe just put it right in the center. You know, however you want to highlight, totally up to you. So I've got my little white highlights that I just did. I might go back after this dries, we'll see, and add a little bit more of the highlighting to it. But basically, it's pretty well dry at this point since we are very, very light-handed with our paint today. But it's up to you, however much you want to add to it. It's really all about your colors today. So I feel pretty good about mine. I am happy to let it be. And I hope that you enjoyed this painting with us today. And you can apply this technique to all sorts of fun stuff with lights. So hopefully you'll have a good painting by the end of it. And thank you again for joining us.